Hi guys, somebody asked me to make a video on reactive abuse. What is reactive abuse? Reactive abuse is when a narcissist or a psychopath or a sociopath will poke and prod and manipulate and gaslight in this subtle, underhanded way to where eventually you're going to react, right? And you react, and you might react like with anger, with yelling, with, sometimes even throwing things or something. And I'm not suggesting this is okay. What I'm suggesting is that this is a fairly normal reaction. I mean, the feelings, not the behaviors, but the feelings that you get when somebody is prodding you and poking you. And narcissists can be very genius at it because it can be so underhanded that they do it in such a calm way to where, they appear to be the sane one, and they stand there and they look at you like they don't understand why you're having such a strong emotional reaction. Like, look at you acting so crazy. And then sometimes they'll point it out. They'll be like, calm down, calm yourself. I don't know why you're acting so irrational or so crazy, right? But behind the scenes, they've been poking and prodding, right? So it's very, very interesting how they do this. They are, you have to remember, these people are masters of manipulation. It is like their first language, right? They learned this as a young child. They learned how to manipulate in order to get their needs met in their families, right? That's what they had to do. That's what I believe anyway. They had to do it. They grew up with parents that were perfectionistic, probably very cold. There wasn't probably a lot of love. It was all performance based. Their affection was based on conditional performance. So if the child performed well, then the parent would give them some sort of accolades or some sort of encouragement or validation, right? If the child did performed less than perfect and made the parent look bad, then the parent might have given them the silent treatment, withholding of affection, maybe stop communicating with them. They say the silent treatment is one of the most egregious forms of abuse if you do that to children. It's horrible, right? Just ignoring them and giving them the silent treatment. You guys might have guessed, but I have such a big mouth. I've never been able to give this silent treatment. So it's one of those things where, they often will sort of, create this behind the scenes, covert, hidden, poking and prodding, often like a insult coupled with a compliment. It's like a backhanded insult. And so, it's like, the person doesn't even know that they're being played like a fiddle, right? So the empath, who's somebody who has a normal range of human emotions, is reacting to this. And they probably don't even know that they're necessarily reacting to that, right? Unless you start being really aware of it and you step back. And so that's why Dr. Ross Rosenberg, he talks a lot about respond, not react. So like really step back, and I'm doing this, I'm actually stepping back, and get yourself into a space where you're calm, right? And hopefully you're not even with a narcissist anymore because you've gone no contact and you've done everything you need to do to heal and get away. But if you're with one, then try to disengage, right? And even if you're like, I need to go take some time by myself. I'll come back perhaps we can, discuss this at a later date when both of our spirits are calmer, but when we're both calmer, right? So you can leave the situation entirely, just get away from them and go by yourself and do some self-care. It can be deep breathing. See, I just by taking 2 deep breaths, I just calmed my nervous system down, right? And I'm calmer, I'm like more just serene. So deep breaths, go for a jog, go for a walk, and put on a guided meditation where you're starting to put yourself out of the headspace of thinking about them or getting sort of reacting. And then sometimes with overt narcissists, I've dealt with some of those where their prodding might be much more obvious, right? And they try to make everything your fault. They don't take personal responsibility. So they basically will point out that your reaction to their abuse is the problem, right? Your reaction, how you react to their abuse, verbal abuse, psychological and emotional abuse is the problem. Like, oh, look at how you're reacting. Wow, look at how you're really getting upset here. Oh, wow, you're yelling. Or, oh, wow, look at you, crazy. And then they're very good at acting very calm, even both overt and covert. They can calm themselves down in a way where you look like the irrational one. You look like the one because you're having a normal range of human emotions based on the stimuli that you're being presented with. So what you can do is remove yourself from the situation. Remove yourself. I've gotten really good at saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to leave, and perhaps we can pick this up at a later time when cooler heads prevail. And I do it. I get out of there, because what will happen if you don't, and I have some very clear cases where this happened for me, and I had the sort of dichotomy of where I responded instead of reacting, and then other times where I reacted, and the way I felt afterwards was vastly different, and I'll kind of explain that. But I was dealing with somebody who has like probably highly narcissistic traits, and I started to give in to the bait. I was being baited, and I started arguing with that person, and we were exchanging some dialogue where it turned into personal insults, and I was totally guilty of doing it too. And then I left, and I felt horrible afterwards. And the reason I felt horrible was because not necessarily what they were doing, but more the reaction it caused in me. It actually, I acted out in ways that are not true to myself. They're not normal for me to even act in that way, because I live in a pretty calm, serene state. And like most of the people that I'm surrounded with are really reasonable, kind, normal, communicative people. They don't have these narcissistic rages. They don't have I'm not around narcissists very often, right? Because for very deliberate, right? Or even around toxic people. So I don't really get a lot of that. It doesn't happen. I don't have a lot of conflict in my life. But so the reason I felt so bad was because I acted in ways that were not true to my own integrity, because I reacted, right? And then another time, and it was similar scenario, but instead of kind of getting into the mud and swimming with the pigs, I said, hey, I'm going to exit this. Maybe we can talk at a later time, right? And as soon as you do that, even if there's an initial part of conflict that's starting and you first find yourself like kind of getting drawn into it, if you can stop yourself and remove yourself from the situation, then you are not going to do anything that makes you feel ashamed of yourself, right? And then you can get some perspective, because what narcissists are really good at is deflection and sort of engaging in conflict with you, so you keep your eyes off the truth, which is whatever the gaslighting, lying, cheating, manipulation that they're doing. They like to create a lot of confusion, so there's conflict between the two of you, and somehow it becomes your fault, right? The situation is your fault, rather than what was the original issue. The original issue might have been, hey, you were talking to them about their cheating, or they're lying, or they're gaslighting, or they're keeping your name off the title or assets, or they were talking to you about, there was some sort of financial abuse that was going on, or there was some sort of sexual issue that you were talking to them about, and they really like to twist things so that you get distracted from the issue at hand and you start reacting. Then all of a sudden it becomes a problem of the two of you rather than their problem. And remember, these are people that have an almost inability to take any personal responsibility for their part, right? So it's all your fault. And then they can go to their flying monkeys and say, oh yeah, this person was just really acting so crazy. Like, oh my gosh, you should have seen the text messages or phone calls that I was receiving, or all this craziness. And I can tell you this, in the end of my relationship with the covert narcissist or the sociopath that I was with, I totally reacted, because I was like in this awful state of trauma. I just, I found out, well, first I didn't know he was having an affair, but there was like gaslighting and all this horrible behaviors going on. He wasn't coming home at night, multiple nights. I almost called the police because I thought he was dead. I didn't know if he was alive or dead. Like, I really was like, oh my gosh, what's happening here? So I was in this really, really traumatized state because of the way that this person was treating me. And I didn't know that this person was a narcissist or a sociopath. I had no idea. So I kept like reaching out to him because we'd been together for 10 years. And in the past, I could reach out and get communication at times. Although in retrospect, I'm like, there wasn't really any honest communication going on there. But I was like trying to get understanding. And I'm sure he probably showed text messages and phone calls to his new source of supply that he was grooming to show how crazy I was, right? She's so crazy. I don't know why she's doing this. She's just being so crazy. And I, admittedly, I probably looked like totally crazy because I was in this horrible state of trauma. I had no idea. When the mask came off, I was like, whoa, I didn't know what was happening. I was in a state of horrible confusion. I had no idea that I was with somebody who was even capable of cheating. I thought he was like a saint. So, so anyway, just kind of getting back to the video at hand, which is, reactive abuse can happen. And the best thing you can do is like remove yourself from those situations. Go calm yourself down, maybe come back to it another time. But if you're going to come back to it, I'd have everything in writing. Every single thing in writing, or record it. So thank you so much. And only record it if it's legal in your state. Have a nice day, and I'll talk to you soon.